Greetings, this is Atma Bodha. Today is January 5th, 2022. The title of today's podcast is Negative People Are Not True Individuals. Since negative people are always the most easily offended, it is proof their environment shapes them. They are unable to disentangle their feelings from what happens around them. However much they claim to be different through their clothing or their lifestyle, actually their personal power is quite weak. Because of this weakness, they know that to feel powerful, they must form mobs of groupthink. This power, unfortunately, has the side effect of lowering the intelligence of its members. To the mob leaders, however, this is a boon. A dumbed-down group is easier to control through fear and intimidation. Thus inhibited, such people can feel that the only way for liberation is to remove any semblance of identity that they have left. By merging with the collective completely, they can abdicate their personal responsibility and let the mob control them. The voices in their head shout, "We are the victims. This is the only way to be vindicated." The alternative to this outcome is, to them, far more terrifying. It would involve giving up their sense of identity in another way, by becoming positive. The reason this concept is frightening to them is because it means taking on personal responsibility. It means no longer blaming others for their plight, and instead rising up to make a stand for their own life. Instead of surrendering to the mob or to their environment, they develop a backbone of imperviousness and remember what it is to rebel. Group members don't rebel. They conform to their group. Independence is only possible for an individual, and no strong individual is a pessimist. Negativity is for the weak, and yet they taunt that positivity is toxic. What they are really saying is that individuality is toxic, and you better conform to the hive mind or be outcast. Fortunately, there is a happy ending to this tale. No number of people, no matter their millions or billions, has the power to suppress the truth. Truth cannot be created, and all attempts to subjugate it will ultimately fail. This same truth lives in you, and if you listen carefully, you can hear its whispers. It wants to free your mind and empower you to live your dreams. There are only two directions you can go. You can choose to lose your power to the group, or you can gain personal power and learn what it feels like to be truly free. And that concludes what was written earlier, and now we're going to go into more detail and see where this leads us. First of all, to reiterate the title, Negative People Are Not True Individuals. What does that mean? What's a negative person in this context? What we mean by that is a pessimistic person. Because as you've gathered from the previous podcast, negative people tend to be more thin-skinned. And when you are thin-skinned, you are more easily influenced by your environment. In turn, this means you are less independent. And being less independent makes you less of an individual. The only way to be an independent individual is to have a positive outlook on life. There is no other way. And that may be confronting to people. A lot of people are attached to the way that they live their life, to have the ups and downs. In fact, in modern psychology, they even refer to that as being normal, that positivity can be toxic. And this brings to another point. There's this word called realist. And pessimistic people will often refer to this word as a defense to their outlook on life. They just say they're being realist. They're living in the real world. And that word has such a misnomer associated with it because that's nowhere close to what reality is. Yes, you might say material reality has a negative bent, that there is a lot of toxicity in the world, and this world is not a perfect paradise yet. We see crimes committed, we see corruption, we see imperfections, and there's a lot of struggle. People are struggling, and there are real victims, and I want to make that perfectly clear. This is not about victim blaming. This is not about belittling victims. No, I have full respect for actual victims. In fact, a creed, a code of this path of ultimate truth is to protect the weak and the oppressed. And that's very, very important. We want to protect the weak. And that's why it's so important that we promote positivity, because having a positive mindset is the ultimate protection. Because when you don't have that positive mindset, you become more susceptible to different things happening to you, unfortunately. And it becomes difficult to break free of past trauma if you cannot come to a more positive place and incorporate that into your lifestyle. Because if you don't incorporate a more positive attitude, you're going to be falling back into old behavior patterns. And this negative voice inside of you is going to justify the past wrongs that were committed against you, however wrong and abhorrent. And I give full condemnation to these things. I don't want bad things. I don't want people to suffer any more than they have to. I want to minimize suffering on this path to enlightenment. And so it's important then to look at this from the perspective of someone who is at a place where they don't have suffering. What kind of reality does that person have? And that always is going to be a positive mindset. So if you ever are going to want to escape from the trauma, you're going to have to adjust and fake it till you make it someone who's actually recovered. Because otherwise, you are not moving in the right direction. And yes, time is the healer of all wounds. And over time, whatever trauma you've had in the past is definitely going to eventually reduce. But it's going to reduce faster if you avoid reliving that trauma. Sometimes it's better to forgive and forget and to move on with your life. Because if you don't do that, if you constantly are reliving your past experiences, you can get stuck in that place. And unless you really like torturing yourself that way, and I'm sure you probably don't, it's good to have that ideal that someday in the future you can escape from that place and you can stop identifying yourself with being a victim, but instead identify yourself with the greater potential that exists within you. To have that belief that within you lies something more powerful, something more powerful than you dare to dream. And sometimes it takes that leap of faith every day in the morning to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm not that person I was before. I'm someone new. It may be new to me now in my mind, but actually it's not the new me. It's the real me. And that's the biggest mistake that many victims of past trauma do, is in identifying yourself as the victim. You're not identifying yourself with something more. And it may be difficult to get to that place, and that could take time. But this is why we have goals, aspirations, and ideals to strive for. Because if we don't have those ideals, we definitely are not getting closer to them. Love is the healer of all wounds. And that is so important to feel that sense of love in your chest, in your heart, to awaken that within you, because that is the real you. That is the authentic you. As you get closer to that deeper self, deep within you, you can remember that you are not alone. The whole universe wants to help you. It wants to take you to the next level in this journey of your life. Because once you start looking at things from a positive perspective, instead of seeing problems, you see opportunities. Instead of restriction, you see possibilities. You begin to realize that the main thing holding you back is yourself and the beliefs that you had that were limiting and holding you back. You are special. You are unique. You have this amazing potential within you. And even if you don't see yourself that way right now, that is what is true about you. Even if you don't realize it, that's the truth. And when you start realizing it, you're going to want to help others realize how special they are too. Because at heart, all of us, all humans, all humanity, we have this innate potential to love each other without condition, without limitation, and have it be in a continuous state of our being. I know the amount of suffering that exists out there in the world, and that is what requires courage. That in spite of everything out there that is bad, to have the courage to be stubborn with a positive attitude and the conviction that nothing can stop you, that nothing can interrupt your bliss, nothing can interrupt your love, that you will keep shining no matter the adverse circumstances or situation, because it is only up to you that can do this. No one else is going to hold your hand. No one is going to believe in you as much as you can believe in yourself. And when you have this conviction, there is no way you can be pessimistic. You can't have that negative attitude anymore. Why? Because you have that love in your heart. And that love is what gives you hope, that gives you strength and gives you power. And as we know, love is one of the two primordial forces of the universe, the other one being truth. And the energy of truth is not something that most people have discovered yet, but that is the power of God. And we're not talking about God in the religious sense. This is something that is beyond religion. No religion can dictate what God can or cannot do. This is not some judgmental figure up in the sky. It is there to help you unconditionally, no matter what bad thing you think you've done in the past. Higher truth never gets in your way of enlightenment. It's only you that get in the way of your own enlightenment with your own self-limiting beliefs. You can call on this power at any time. It doesn't need any special ritual or invocation or gift. It's something that's universal and personal to you. You can allow it into your life as little or as much as you want. There are no rules. The only rule is to try to be good to people and to protect the weak and to be a good steward of the planet. But other than that, it's completely open. From the perspective of ultimate truth, there is no such thing as sin. The only sin is when you don't experience this higher truth, because what is sin? All sin means is you're choosing a lesser pleasure. You're choosing a less ideal reality. That's all sin means. When you choose the ultimate truth, you're choosing the greatest pleasure. And this in turn can help strengthen you and help you further awaken your own heart. Of course, there are things that you can do to help facilitate this experience, and that it would be to avoid taking drugs or excessive alcohol or things that are generally considered by your doctor to be unhealthy for you. The closer you are to healthy living, the closer you can be to this ultimate truth. But having said that, even if you're living an unhealthy lifestyle, even if you feel like you're not strong enough to kick the narcotics or kick the drugs or kick the alcohol, you can still ask this higher force for help. You shouldn't feel guilty if you don't go to church or if you skip a day on whatever discipline you're trying to do. The regard this ultimate power has is unconditional, and it's there to help you only. But when you are being negative and coming from a pessimistic place, you are creating a barrier between you and this ultimate power. Of course, this ultimate power is more powerful than any barrier, but what you've done is created a self-imposed barrier that by your narrow perspective, you're limiting yourself on what you can and cannot experience. One nature of the universe is that it honors and respects free will. It will always help you, but it's not going to go out of its way to help you if you don't consciously choose to be enriched by this aspect of your life. And ultimately, it's about belief. Until you have that experience, you need to believe it can happen to you. If you can't believe in that, then it won't. The power of belief is that strong. Continuing on a pessimistic path without belief in a higher power, that will gradually spiral you down into a narrower and more constrained reality that can descend into nothingness. And some people might say that nothingness is a good thing. Well, let me just give you a glimpse of what that looks like. Yes, you can feel a sense of liberation through nothingness, but at what cost? If you lose your individual identity, you're basically giving up the reason you were even born in the first place. You might as well not even have been born if that was the case. You've been gifted a body and a mind for a reason. And that's why it's important to be sacred about it, to recognize that there is a deeper purpose in why you are here. And the other thing to mention is the smaller you think of yourself, the more vulnerable you become to outside attacks. And I'm not talking just about an insult on the street or being easily offended by some external event that happens to you. But there is another dimension to life that people are unaware of. There is a spiritual aspect to life, and there is a spiritual warfare aspect to life. There is good things that happen, and there are bad things that happen. And if you can conceive of the fact that devils and demons could possibly exist, well, guess what? Those that are most vulnerable to these things would be the pessimistic people. And I don't want there to be more victims. I want everyone to be strong. And the best way to have that strength is to build up that shield of positivity, have it reinforced with the love in your heart and your higher connection with the ultimate truth. With that sword of truth in your hand and your heart full of love, you can handle everything that life can throw at you. And we have an awesome community here also at divinity.com. You can join the Discord chat, and you can also join the Reddit and comment freely there with the other members, myself included. This is Atma Bodha signing off until tomorrow. Have a great day.